Our two ICM champions, Emma and Wolfgang, are leading another meeting of the Regional Stakeholder Coalition. This group meets monthly working towards their shared goal of more integrated and effective management for a critical congested corridor. Let's check in with the group as their discussion turns to evaluating ICM deployments.
Welcome back, everyone. Today we are talking about how to assess the impacts of the ICM deployment here in Alligator City.
Investing in ICM is a significant undertaking for us, so we want to do this right. Effectively evaluating the impacts of ICM will help us to invest in the right strategies, invest with confidence, lower risk associated with implementation, improve implementation continually. Oh yes. We just completed an assessment of a new dynamically priced tolling system in our tunnel and found the average delay before the new system was 22 minutes. But after installation, it was cut by 50% to 11 minutes.
Thank you, Sylvia. This sounds promising. But before and after studies, like your example, may not give us a full picture of the impacts. Diego, can you help explain this?
Yeah. Over the first 2 months of the new tolling system, we had sunny, springtime weather with fewer incidents, whereas in the months leading up to the installation, we had long periods of heavy rain, fog, and rush hour incidents, clogging up the roads.
You all are right. Maybe our analysis isn't quite complete yet. To the highest degree possible, we want to make sure that confounding factors aren't impacting our results.
You're right, Emma. Confounding factors are variables that may skew the apparent association between the outcome and the treatment. We may end up making the wrong conclusions on the impacts if we don't account for the confounding factors, or if data is not available.
I see, Emma. What are some examples of confounding factors? Some examples of potential confounding factors are emergence of major natural or societal disruptions, changes in policies of access and control, or change in the economy. Simply put, these variables are confounding factors because they weren't included in the analysis. It could be because they were overlooked or there was no data.
Okay. Then how do we control for the impacts of these potential confounding factors?
The FHWA has a training on this topic, but today we will give an overview of two approaches: statistical techniques and analysis, modeling, and simulation, or AMS.
One approach is to use statistical techniques, along with cluster analysis. Cluster analysis allows us to assign days in the pre- and post-deployment periods into groups experiencing similar operational conditions. For instance, days with similar types of incidents, weather, and demand levels. The expectation is that days within each group or cluster are impacted by similar confounding factors. We can then compare the pre- and post-deployment days that fall within each cluster, and leverage other statistical tools or techniques to help account for the confounding factors.
Another option is to use analysis, modeling, and simulation, or AMS. We can use AMS to model each of these unique groups that Emma mentioned, and do a with and without assessment, or counterfactual modeling. That's another way to isolate the impacts of confounding factors.
I have heard Ronan talk about AMS. What else can we do with AMS?
AMS can also be used for pre-deployment planning, designing, and refinement of strategies, as well as post-deployment evaluation of impacts. Unlike traditional corridor studies, which often focus on a specific element of a corridor, like a freeway on a specific time of day, ICM, AMS is a comprehensive approach that analyzes different operational conditions across time and modes and across a large enough geographic area to absorb all impacts. We can use AMS to invest in the right strategies and to conduct a what-if assessment prior to ICM deployment. Assess impacts of incremental deployment of strategies in the pre-deployment stage. Evaluate impacts of the ICM deployment and enable continuous improvement.
When I do my analysis, I typically throw out high incident days and outliers, and stitch data from multiple days to create an average day. Will my approach still work?
Not quite. Analysis of the average day often fails to capture a complete picture. Real systems have good and bad days. And if we throw out data and take an average, we create an artificial day that is not representative. Many ICM strategies are targeted at mitigating non-typical events, such as uncommon incidents and severely inclement weather. So the analysis needs to be expanded beyond the typical day to properly measure those target ICM days.
Plus, when using AMS, we should avoid an all or nothing analysis of various individual ICM strategies we deploy. A successful analysis should consider evaluating different combinations of strategies most appropriate for each cluster.
I agree. Also, the geographic scope should be large enough to encompass the area of the project, and temporal scope should be big enough to capture the rise and fall of congestion within the corridor. That's right, Sylvia. Done right, AMS tools can be helpful in selecting and designing the specific ICM strategies that we wish to implement. And by tailoring the AMS tools to model our specific corridor situation, we can get an idea of the operational impacts of the ICM system we deploy.
For more information, please see the Federal Highway Administration's Traffic Analysis Toolbox, Volume 13, that is entitled Integrated Corridor Management Analysis, Modeling and Simulation Guide.
You just heard Emma, Wolfgang, and the Stakeholder Coalition discussing key considerations for evaluating and measuring the impacts of ICM deployments. Check out our other segments in this series to learn more about ICM. Thank you for watching.